I've challenged 6 designers to collaborate on a building design, showcasing their creativity, problem solving, and design skills. But here's the twist: they can't communicate with each other. Each participant is going to get 1 week to develop the project, interpreting and building upon the work of the previous designer. By the end, we'll have high quality renderings that reveal the evolution of the architectural design and compare the results of each phase. This episode is going to feature 6 fourth-year architecture students using Rhino 3D and Twinmotion. So let's dive in and see how our first designer kicks off the project.
Okay, so my name is Lindsey Thole. I am about to be a fourth year in the College of Architecture and Planning. I'm going to be starting this off as the first person in this whole series. The idea of a community space and also thinking like what kind of building or program or location. So this first one I really liked because it seems like kind of like a rowing community. You can see the people with their boats like carrying them here, like how it has these different ports and like everyone comes outside. Okay, this is the next one, the community rowing boathouse. This one also was like super light and airy, and I really like how they had the boats like on the bottom and like how that was open and then all of the indoor space was on top of it. I thought that was really cool. Again, showing this like walkway down to the river and then this cool like boat storing facility and how it's like offset from this like main building. All right, so I'll be walking you through the site I picked, kind of why I picked that site, and getting that site into Rhino. Okay, so the site I picked is way up in the Pacific Northwest. I picked this river because it had a lot of green and wasn't like right next to a highway, and I especially like this little like dip, kind of like line of the shore. So here I'm putting the KML file in Google Earth so that I can get the image of it so I can do like the scaling and everything. In this step, I'm exporting all of the contours so that I can overlay the other file on top of it. What's really important is that you just get like a screenshot. That's what I like to do. Contours and then of the scale in the bottom so that you can scale it correctly in Rhino so that that 2 mile marker is the actual length of the 2 mile line. There we go. That looks pretty good. Go ahead and delete the picture. You don't need that anymore. Okay, here I'm kind of cutting out what's more unnecessary. So like I said before, that little like dip curve in the water is where I want to put our site. So everything else is kind of just extra for the sake of rendering to make things go quickly, cutting out as much as I can while keeping enough for the visuals later. So that's what this rectangle is doing. All right, so we have all of our contours. I'm going to go ahead and elevate them all correctly. Like I said before, a little trick to know if 2 contours are corresponding with each other and that they should be the same elevation level, even if they're, far apart in distance. Maybe you have one line in that like green area, and then there's another kind of like similar green line on the other side, but you don't really know they go with each other. You can click on them and then see the display color. If it says varies, that means they don't go together. It means they're not the same color because they're a different color and different elevation levels. So you can go through and kind of check. Once you get all of the ones that are the same, group them, elevate them, and then I think I like to hide them so I, don't mistake them with something I still need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of that, and then you'll see how it looks at the end. Having, the site on the river and then having some like docks that connect from the river that have the boats, directly to them. The like idea of angles I really liked. So I'm thinking of having this kind of small like array maybe of like docks that can have the boats stored in them. But maybe they like the space in between them kind of connects and it's like a little landing pad where for like group gatherings outside, maybe that kind of connects back into a larger building that other people might want to make. But just like starting it off, here's one kind of rectangle. I'm going to put them kind of distributed so that they like kind of make this angle along the shoreline. So I'll go ahead and do that. kind of finishing up what I got to. I have these kind of angled shapes that make these kind of modern tube kind of docks. Kind of the thought here is that the boats would be stored in them, and then they would kind of, like I said, like flow along the shoreline of that water. That kind of like connecting floor between them could be, some sort of community event space. I have this idea of like stilts on the bottom. Thought that looked kind of interesting. Maybe they're necessary for structural reasons if someone wants to explore that some more. But yeah, so I think this is going to be where I'm at for the end of my section, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
Hi, my name is Seth Dunnuck, and I am a fourth-year Ball State student. I'm participant number 2 in Design Without Communication, and I want to thank Andrew Lee for allowing me the opportunity to take part in this little project, this architectural game of telephone. And I'm excited to show you guys the things I've done and how I took part in the project. Thanks. Okay, so this is how I received the file from the last participant. And so here's the site and the form. That green square is going to be the focal point for site placement, I'm assuming. And so these forms sort of look like a pirate's telescope or some sort of looking glass, but also in plan view, they kind of remind me of a sailboat, kind of like the Sydney Opera House. And so here I am placing it on site, kind of seeing what I can do to size it up, measuring a little bit, and seeing kind of how it's going to actually sit and be a usable building, I guess. And so the 3 things I'm majorly looking to do: site placement, I want to establish a program, and I want to sort of find the final form of the building. And so here what I've done is sort of cut down to 3 main shells, I guess you would call them. And so they taper down with the site and then also taper back towards the incline. And so I'm adding 2 more solids to fill the space. My plan is to have a mix of interior, exterior, and kind of versatile spaces. And these 2 are kind of filling that gap, tapering the opposite way. I'm planning on connecting these all with circulation. And I want to enclose parts and open other parts. The program I'm looking to do, since it's on the water and it's probably, it's a really versatile program, I'm looking to do a community center that is kind of in those open areas, and then an enclosed natural history museum, also a concert or performance venue. And so as you can see here, I've made a lot of progress with those. Those circulation tunnels are accessible on top and inside of them. Concert venue facing the water, so it's got a beautiful view. And so if we take the glazing off these buildings I've added, you can see sort of how they'd be accessible and how they work. They're multi-story, and some are shorter than others, so it's going to be an interesting way of circulation throughout. And so here you can see, someone could be in this tunnel, and it could also be used as sort of a museum gallery, kind of lining the walls as you walk to either side. You can also walk on top of them. Here we're taking a look at where floor plates would be and sort of how spaces would be accessible throughout. Here you can see the sort of ground or the bottom floor plates would taper down. If you're watching the concert venue, it's going to allow the person behind you to see in front of them. And then there's also the spaces in between the buildings that are accessible. So it's extremely versatile. Up top, the second floor, interior and exterior. Here you're looking at how somebody could stand on top. And then this could be easily glazed, so they could be looking outside. And then in here, it could be, again, sort of a museum lining. Here, when you just zoom out, this is what the building's really going to sit like on site. And you're looking from the second floor here down to the venue. There could easily be some accessible space up here that would allow for great views and an extremely enjoyable sort of time. And that about wraps it up for me. Moving on to the next contestant, I want to thank Andrew Lee again for letting me have the opportunity. And if you want to give me a follow on LinkedIn, it is at Seth Dunnuck. And take it easy.
Hello, my name is Logan Heller. I'm about to be a 4th-year student this fall at the College of Architecture and Planning at Ball State University. I'm very excited to be a part of this project. What you're looking at right now is a before and after of what I received from the previous participant and what I'm sending off to the next person. So let's jump in and show you how I got there. All right, so as I open the file up for the first time, I noticed that we have a really large site here already, which is really great. You can see that there's kind of a river bank. I believe it's a river The layer names kind of confirm that for me, that it is a body of water. And as I zoom in, I can see that the form is really dominated by this very specific language with these really broad curves, and they're kind of interlinked by these different buildings that act almost as spokes on a wheel that rotate around that central axis that sort of terminates in the stage down there by the bank. Um, the two yellow are the Natural History Museum, as labeled by the layer names, and the other three white buildings are the Visitor Center buildings. It also labels the center point of the axis, that object out by the water, as a temporary stage, but perhaps that could become a more permanent fixture, and an amphitheater could become a prominent part of this project. Let's get started. So one of my favorite ways to start a project is to lay out some guidelines based on geometry that already exists in the project. So it could be contextual geometry, or in this case, geometry from previous participants. But immediately here, I'm going to jump into creating the so-called cascading promenade. As I sort of mentioned in the beginning there, I think it's important for this complex to engage with the hillside and the bank of the river, or the body of water, because it is so dominated by those features. So I really want to engage that slope in a way that meets the circulation of the building, as well as tapers down to accommodate the amphitheater of the building. So that's what I'm doing now. These are going to act as the seats as well as part of the promenade. Now, as I've been doing this, I noticed that it might not be in the exact right position for the ideas that I've pushed through now. So I'm just reorganizing it a bit on the existing site parcel that has been selected. I didn't want to move that, but I just wanted to slightly nudge it over so that my tapering cascading promenade fit into the bank of the river a little bit better. So as I said a little bit, I added this stage and these amphitheater seats that also act as a sort of a breakwater promenade. I also added an introductory stair, so to speak. They need to be further integrated into the cascade just to be fitting with the aesthetic. But I also plan to continue that cascading language up and to meet the stage, so that motif is connected throughout the interaction with the riverbank. I wanted the stage to be rising from that cascading promenade. So after being in the file for a few minutes now and getting used to what has been provided to me, the materiality that I'm envisioning is becoming a lot more clear. The two yellow or lighter colored ones are the museum, and those are far more tied to the hillside. They almost feel heavy, especially compared to the other three structures. So the two visitor center buildings on either side and the center spoke, those are a lot lighter. They open to the riverbank and they look out over these expansive views, while the two museum buildings open to what would be the community that is supporting this facility. So in my mind, those two museum buildings need to be a lot heavier, a lot more solid. And then the three that open to the view these three here need to be a lot lighter. Wood frame construction, something like that. So that's what I'm going to do now, and let's get started. Going for almost a thorn crown chapel vibe here with a repeating set of trusses. Rather than sticking to exactly that design though, I'm going to do a set of trusses that are almost a system within a system. So the truss will be its own system, of course, and then three trusses will come together to create a even stronger module. And then in each structure, there will be a multitude of those truss groupings. So those groupings tied together will create even more strength, and so on. Each of those groupings will be held together by cabling, in my mind, to keep it feeling light and not overcomplicated with too much horizontal or diagonal bracing. I redesignated the center building to be a core, so to speak. One of the things that was really important to me in my turn of this project was to explore the materiality. Exploring those problems and finding solutions to those problems helps me personally to further the design of my own projects. And I think that's a good way to solve those issues. Here is a view of the project as it stands after the three buildings have been worked on. The truss systems are in place, as you can see, with the cabling. And then I've gone for a very light, very airy almost Japanese feel for the envelopes. So glazing and a corrugated sheet metal roof with almost fabric walls. That's the white there where the mouse is. I want it to feel airy and very open, very accessible through the entire complex. I think that's important to emphasize the connection between each building. Now we're going to work on the other two buildings, the museum buildings, the ones that are heavier and more tied to the hillside. So just to start, I'm going to basically delete the existing forms and create new guidelines based on the structures that I've created so that they are all in sync directionally. Also, vertical circulation has been a large issue up to this point that I had not solved, and this is where I'm going to solve that issue, at least for my part of the project. Now we're going to create some views. So it was important to me as well to create views and label those views so that it is very clear to other participants that come after me what my vision was for these spaces. So for example, there are some labeled restaurant, some labeled kitchen, some labeled other things, and each one has a vague or specific program that is attached to it. Well, I think that just about does it for me on this project. My turn is coming to an end, but I'm very happy with how it turned out here. And I'm super excited to see where it goes from here. There's still 3 more contestants after me, and I don't know who they are, and I don't know who the people before me were, of course. But I want to thank all of them for helping participate, and I especially want to thank Andrew Lee for putting this together and thinking of me when the project was conceived. I've had a lot of fun, and I just want to say a big thank you. Now, on to the next designer.
Hey, this is Owen, and here is the beginning of my section of the Architecture No Communication project. Here is a beginning of the file that I was given, how it looks when I first opened it. Without any changes to me, it looks pretty busy, very complicated. So with my part, at the beginning, I simply just wanted to simplify it and create a little bit more harmony and unity and cleanliness among the project, just because it looks a little bit messy in my opinion, and I wanted to get it to its next stage. First, to simplify this project, I want to look at how the building itself, all of this, is going to be meeting the terrain. So I've hidden most of the surrounding complicated geometry, such as the structure, entourage, etc., and I have clipped away where the terrain is in line with the building itself, and we're going to be looking at doing some cutting and filling in order to make this look a lot more realistic and that it's really impacting the ground. Now, as you can see, with a little bit more of the detail back, some of the structure back, I have filled in this gap around the bottom, so we'll be going down into the ground and behind, where previously the building was clipping with the ground. We have cut a lot of that terrain away and created a retaining wall around the edges, so now the building itself looks a little bit more realistic. I am also cleaning up these tiered blocks around the edges that weren't exactly copied at the right point. They were off kilter, off their vertices, and just cleaning that up to make it look a lot nicer. As you can see here, I'm starting to work on the stage now. Redesigning this, I started with this curve that you can see that I'm offsetting and moving upwards to create the kind of shape for the new stage canopy. As you can see towards the end, it is more of a sloped block design. I intend for this to be a kind of precast concrete that would be placed here, already built, and has a garden feature on top as well.
All right, so I would say my first impression when I opened the file was definitely an amphitheater of some sort, or stage, outdoor stage, considering the circulation and the scale of the project. It was definitely interesting starting out not knowing anything beforehand, but it also was nice to have the layout organization, which also kind of gave me some clues as to what each thing was purposed for, such as circulation and the tiers. So when I started, I wanted to figure out what I was going to contribute,
without taking away from anyone else's ideas and concepts. So I wanted to kind of follow what other people had started in some way. The stage that was existing when I started the project followed the kind of retaining walls around the outside of the site and almost like protruded out of those, which I thought was interesting. But I thought it could kind of have a different language as well. So I decided to create a new stage that kind of lent itself more to the design. I kind of based it off of the pre-existing lines of circulation on the site. So I followed the angles of how the site looks from an aerial view, just to kind of give it some order with like views as well. I thought that maybe that there could be different performances going on or different events in each of these that are categorized by those three kind of sectors that are already through circulation. So that was something else I was considering as well. So I came up with this kind of triangular stage that could be adjustable for different uses. I saw in the layers that someone implied that there would be market spaces. So I thought the stage could also be able to be transformed to use as a market space, and people could set up booths there as well. I really like the circulation that someone added, the red kind of piping that follows through the 5 different buildings. The structure also as well was really nice that I thought someone added. I really do like the design and the scale of the project. It was really interesting seeing how people approached the project differently and how there were difficulties with how other people work and organizations were different. So adjusting to how other people work was really cool to see, plus the interview afterwards.
Hello, my name is Haggenjos, and I believe I am the 6th participant in this, so I have no clue who the other 5 participants are within this. I'm gonna go straight into twin motion. First things first, I see that this floor is a little too high, it looks like, so I'm going to bring this guy down. Probably to right about where the water starts. Right there. Just for right now. What does that look like? Bring the scale down for that. All roofs are in. Sweet. It's not it. That might work. It has the lines that I was kind of looking for. So next, I'm going to get this stone in. What does the client want? Well, here's the thing. There is no client for this. The real question is what we're going to make this. Because we could totally make it like a wood siding. So we're going to get rid of that one. We're going to go to materials, go back to stone, and actually grab the same material here and just rotate it. Scale it. Okay, so we're gonna have water out here. Now where is it? Right there. Okay. Got that in. We're gonna need to get rocks here. And also, I think we should put an island out here too. Okay, so rocks. Yeah, I could totally see that as an actual building. This one's nice. So this got this. Last thing I could think of, we're gonna add a tree right over here. So then whenever we look through this, the branches makes frame. Where'd you go? I'm gonna export these. And then I'll also export the video. Then I'm going to put no refinement on. I'm not going to worry about motion blur, as well as max lighting and 3D mode. And last but not least, we need to go into Photoshop and adjust some of the settings for these renders that we created. Alright, so I think that wraps up my section of this project.
It looks amazing.
Ryan,
As always, good work, Ryan.
yeah,
Wonderful
Ryan
job.
did a great job. A lot of site context, and like really kind of putting the image of this building together.
The scaling kind of brings it into perspective. I didn't realize how big it was.
I know the scaling, but also the materiality of it all, the lighting. I really like these lights you added to the stage.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Got some
Yeah, it looks
interior rendering with the stage in the background and some mountains.
The stage fits so well in the renderings. It's great. I was going for a real Thorn Crown Chapel vibe, but I didn't want to
I
just...
literally was thinking
Yeah.
that when I opened it too.
Yeah.
You tiered the buildings too, and then it like exposed everything as well. Like you got wood, and then you got your steel supports. I think that looks amazing.
Those
Did
look
you
really
find
good.
it helpful having that big of a site when you were rendering? I've been wondering if that was worth it or not.
Yeah, that helped a lot because
Okay,
like
good.
it gave me the context of where water was gonna be and where the
Uh-huh.
land was gonna be. So then from there, I kind of just like built a site around it, like just
Okay.
for like context. So yeah, it helped a lot.
Okay, good. Because
Honestly, personally, I
yeah.
feel like it helped me on my turn even. Like it was nice to
Yeah.
have so much extra space.
But yeah, it's crazy that like it got so huge. But I think that's so cool how it like, because I can still see like the shape that I started with, or like the forms and how they like evolved to this. I can still see like where it started from what I did. So I think it was really
I think we all took like really good steps, like,
Mhm.
and like you can definitely see like fragments of everyone's design in some way, shape, or form, which I think is super interesting. And I think the renderings for sure bring that all together.
It's very interesting, like seeing like every single stage because like what you said, I had no clue what the beginning looked like at all. I had no clue what the intentions were for this project at all. I saw stairs and I thought a concert venue.
Seeing how people work differently is kind of interesting. Like seeing where people would like what they would add to it when working on a project. Like some people would want to work on the structure more than others. Some people want to do the renderings. Some people like starting with the concept. So I think that was kind of interesting to see how people work on things, which I think also makes it difficult because people work on projects differently than others. So when you have to pick up off someone else's work, it might not be like how you would approach a project or like the timeline or like series of things you would contribute. So I thought that was interesting to see.
I think this project turned out amazing, and I can't wait to share it with everybody. So